there's a lot there. Yeah, I mean, if I had to highlight some of the more common, one, you're too emotionally tied to the
Mhm.
business, which is understandable, right? It's your baby. That's your blood, sweat, and tears for 30, 40, sometimes 50 years.
Mhm.
Um, More often than not, you don't professionalize your business or your practice. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is audited financials, track record of growth, the right team in place, that type of thing,
Mhm.
right? If you can't show proven results and performance and numbers, it's very hard to negotiate the best price on your behalf as a seller. I'm Dana Cornell. What I do is really pull the curtain back from traditional investing and wealth building and show people how true wealth is made and kept in this country by giving them access and opportunities to things that I couldn't in my former life. So house was busy. My father was a excavation contractor, still is. My mom was a kindergarten teacher.
Mhm.
I was in every sport imaginable. I have a sister 3 years younger than me, but it was, I would say that's one time where we all kind of, dad came home from work, mom was already there.
Mhm.
Mom cooked most nights for us.
Mhm.
So the four of us would sit down and eat dinner and kind of talk about the day and, you know, what happened. And, that's probably the one time during the day that,
Everybody came together.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
And having a dad that was an entrepreneur, how do you think that shaped your growing up, shaped your life, shaped the way that you dealt with things or looked at things?
It's a big credit to who I became. And, when I look back, one, I saw the struggles, good and bad,
Mhm.
of entrepreneurship. I also saw, he's an excavation contractor. So I grew up working with him, so I had a
Yeah.
shovel in my hand. I didn't come from a world of wealth or anything like that. That's what made me want to learn that world.
Mhm.
Um, Taught me how to work hard, taught me how to count on myself, taught me that if I don't get out of bed and do it and make it happen, nobody's going to do it for me. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
love it.
that shaped a lot of my path going forward.
Yeah. All that mindset is lacking in today's world. I feel, there's a lot of people that,
Couldn't agree more.
looking for the handouts and gimme, gimme, gimme. So
Yeah. Yep.
what, so, what were some of the challenges? Obviously you picked, financial planning and finances to get into. What was the catalyst that made you want to get into that industry? Was there anything that you can remember looking back and saying,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to, get into that?
Absolutely. So, we were a very blue collar family, blue collar town. I didn't
Mhm.
know people of wealth. So that was an interesting part of the world that I didn't have a lot of exposure to.
Mhm.
Um, and again, when I would work with my father and had a shovel in my hand and was, angry when all of my friends are out messing around during the summer and I'm working,
Mhm.
he would tell me, go get a skill set. If this isn't what you want to do for the rest of your life, use this as a learning lesson. So that's what I
Mhm.
did. And, then I moved into college. So I was a general kind of business major, kind of feeling it out. Which did I like? And I thought I was going to law school. That was my plan. Um, During that time, my parents went through some challenging financial times.
Mhm. Mhm.
That kind of hit home right at the right time when I was trying to pick a path. So I actually deferred law school for a year and tried financial advisory
Mhm.
because that was burned in my brain as a recent memory, and I was paying for law school on my own.
Yeah.
So financial advisory was the cheaper of the two options, right? That cost me hard work.
Mhm.
That's how I looked at it, and I knew how to do that. So I deferred law school for a year and tried financial advisory, and it kind of
It's
stuck.
stuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Um, if I guess, I mean, you kind of went through your story of struggle. What types of solutions have you realized now that you understand the finance world and you're offering these services to other people? What does what did that look like when you were on that path of finding like this is how the wealthy people do it, right? These are
Yeah.
this is like unlike the blue collar backgrounds, our town is all blue collar people. What were some of those differences that you noticed between, the way that wealthy people were doing things and the way that, you grew up and your family and
Yeah.
neighbors were doing things?
Man, I'll tell you, this is really, it's an excellent question because it shaped my transition from my previous life at Morgan Stanley, a very traditional wealth management firm, and my growth through that. So it's an evolution of things to answer your question, which ultimately led me to Cornell Capital. But what I've really learned is people are vastly uneducated about finances as a whole, right? The true wealth is maybe a little bit more educated, but also has more resources as far as advisement, that type of thing. And I think what I've learned, if I took one lesson away from it all, is they take control of their finances. What I mean by that is control of ownership, control as far as they understand what they own and know why they own it and know what to expect from that, which brings more consistency. And once you kind of stockpile all of these little things that might sound minuscule, but you add them all together, that's how you build continuous, substantial wealth, right? Instead of taking the traditional path and, doing what the masses do just because that's what you're supposed to do. And that's what you're told. And you sign up for your benefits at work and you just do it because that's, down the line of how things kind of evolve, right?
Yep. So what does that path look like? How do you get started on that path to, like, let's say that your goal is to, be, we don't necessarily need to name a dollar figure, but you want to be wealthy, right? You don't want to have to worry about money. And, what would those initial paths look like that, you're working for someone, you have a W-2 job, maybe you have a 401k and, you've been putting money into that. What are some of those shifts or those transitions that you would need to make to be able to make it to, get to be considered wealthy?
Yeah, when I look back, right, and here's another thing that I think has kind of reshaped my thoughts on how to build wealth. So I talk to my clients and the families I advise a lot about taking control back, but reversing your financial plan. I think it's very interesting that we're kind of trained and coached to save, right? Save. And everybody used to ask me, geez, what's the number I need to feel comfortable?
Yeah.
Right. And it's all relative, right?
Right.
Everybody's number is different. But it's to me a bit counterintuitive to save, knowing the end result, the reason you're saving that pile of money, however big or small it is to create income in the end. So you're going to wait until 30 years down the line and ride the ups and downs of traditional investments to hope that that pile of money matches your needs. And you really don't understand how the money is going to be sent to you in a paycheck. So I just started reversing that financial plan. We started buying investments that create income now, right? We talk about buying your time back, right? So we break down your time, in financial increments and how much do we need to save and where does that money need to be invested to create income now that you essentially don't have to work or make work optional and kind of do it that way, right? The opposite of what most people do. And if you look at the wealthiest families, that's why they invest in private real estate that produces income, private businesses that produce income, right? So that's the basis of what we do. And then we build around that for liquidity, that type of stuff.
Got it. So is it fair to be able to say, you would evaluate the particular person's situation, how old they are, how much money they have to contribute or to invest, on an ongoing basis. And then you might recommend a few different types of vehicles to them, to be able to get them to wherever it is that they're looking to get to. And
absolutely. Yeah. It's traditional in the sense that we still kind of analyze the person, the situation, the ability to save. The difference is the vehicles that we're using in the sequence that we use them is much different than most people are coached up to do. Right?
Got it.
Finally putting it in a mutual fund or, something that you really have no control over, you probably don't understand in a lot of cases. There's also a lot of peace of mind that comes from knowing what you own and why you own it.
Yep. Yeah. That makes
producing first. right?
And now are you helping identify these opportunities, or is it all like, is it essentially mutual funds, or do you have a network of, you know, business owners or real estate investors or what have you that you work with that you can help generate that capital that they need to be able to do whatever the project is that they're looking for?
Yeah, so I don't rely on packaged products, so to speak. Um, Again, a lesson learned is, if you want um, the most opportunity for your dollar, you go directly to the source.
Hmm.
So what I've done is kind of position myself and created a business model where I bring institutional level investments, but
Hmm.
direct ownership to the
Hmm.
individual investor. And our firm sits in the middle. I help guide that investor to the right risk return profile.
Yep.
And we're also doing all of the due diligence, all of the checks and balances that, if you're not in that world and don't have a team of analysts to do, it would be very hard to do
Yep.
the proper research to make sure your money's protected and invested properly.
Yep.
So
Yep.
putting that quarterback in the middle, right? Providing
Yeah.
the opportunity and matching it to the right client.
Yeah, makes sense. And some of the results that that your clients have realized, right? So where they are today, basically, but I guess that's the question is, what did yesterday look like, and now what does today look like after working with your firm?
Yeah, it's so I started out knocking on doors,
Hmm.
right? Collecting small checks. Um, Built a book of business that was right around 1.3, 1.4 billion
Wow.
before I left. I walked away from that because I was sick of talking in historical averages and knowing that there's market declines coming, knowing that people weren't properly positioned, but I was kind of confined to what I could and couldn't do in that world, my previous world. And I would get all the time, people would say, man, if I could just make 6%, 7% consistently, I'd sign up for that all day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I offer investments that generate
To return that.
7 to 10% income consistently,
Yep.
with principal protection and the ability to appreciate on the upside.
Hmm.
So that's what we base our assumptions on, is that income number. And we could talk all day about what averages mean versus a consistent return,
Yeah.
right? And very often in my world, you're taught to explain performance based on historical averages, not the actual dollars and cents, right? Not what really happened in the account.
Yeah. Yep.
Averages sound better.
Yep.
Um, we don't do that, right? We work on consistent income producing returns, and then the upside appreciation is a bonus.
Yep.
But if we
Yep.
protect your principal and give you consistency, that's what we can actually plan on. That's what you can live on.
Got it.
That's how we do it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. What are some of the I guess the qualifiers that you use? Obviously, the cash flow is one of the things, but what types of industries or assets are you particularly interested in promoting?
Yeah, so good question. That's why we have a team. Each market still evolves,
Hmm.
right? There's subsets of each market as well. So primarily we focused on real estate.
Hmm.
Now we've moved into the private equity, small business. There's a lot of baby boomers that have
Yeah.
great cash flowing businesses,
Yeah.
but they make their widget well. They're not sales and marketing specialists. They don't want to put the operations team together. So that's a bigger opportunity that I can see moving forward. It's going to be a much bigger part of our business.
Sure.
But even within real estate, we did a lot of multifamily apartment complex type projects
Hmm.
2 years ago.
Hmm.
Now we don't do those as much. That part of the market's a little bit saturated.
Yeah. Yep.
Doing a lot of self-storage right now makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Right? Risk is lower, the opportunity is greater. So really we're looking, the qualifiers are we're looking for developers that have a long track record of doing what they've done and delivering,
Hmm.
making sure they pay the clients and put the clients first no matter what, because things
Yep.
will go wrong.
Yep. Yep.
It's all going to go perfect. That's not true. Never
Yep.
works that way.
Exactly.
And we want to see what's a risk mitigation plan. What happens when things go sideways?
Yep.
Have you been through that? Do you know what you're going to do? If you can communicate those things, it typically makes a client feel a little bit more secure that at least you have a plan.
Yep.
And then we find the best in class in those respective categories, and that's who I partner with. And it works well for the developer and it works well for the investor.
Yeah, no, makes perfect sense. The small businesses that you're investing in, are they in any particular industries or anything like that, or is it pretty well
Yeah,
all over?
we're really industry agnostic, so to speak.
Mhm.
The only caveat is I typically don't do any service, restaurants, bars, that type of thing.
Mhm.
Honestly, it's more avatar as far as the business, certain profit
Mhm.
margin, certain size, certain number of employees, time it's been in business,
Mhm.
growth track record, because we know we can step in, put the sales, marketing, and operations to a business like that,
Mhm.
grow it at a reasonable pace, and then turn around and sell it at a bigger multiple to a
Yep.
bigger buyer.
So are you guys actually getting involved in creating those teams and those processes and systems, like a baby boomer, maybe, that they've done everything analog on paper, they've been around for 50 years, and they've never really digitized or anything. Are you also there? We can streamline this, automate this is the tool we can use for that. You're kind of putting that plan in place, to be able to bring that business into, the next generation, and then ultimately end up, reselling it, at some point in the future.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, I have a joint venture with a team that's what they've done for a long time. They've been
Mhm.
very successful at it. It took me about a year and a half to really find the right fit for myself and my clients.
Mhm.
These guys they're pros.
Yeah.
That's all they do is buy businesses like that. They source them off market, so they're getting them at a great price.
Yep.
That's what they do. They come in, put sales, marketing, operations on top of it. They know how to professionalize it and sell
Yep.
it in a way that the average person selling a business doesn't typically do. That's
Yeah.
why that we've all heard the stat: 99% of businesses don't actually sell,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So that's the nice thing. On the other side of that, we're creating essentially an exit strategy for that business owner as
Mhm.
well. So
And if you were a business owner that was looking to sell, what type of qualifiers or what type of things would you need to have in place in order to be able to make your company as attractive as possible to be able to realize the best gain?
it's a good question. I think the business owner oftentimes is the business, right?
Mhm.
So if you're a business owner, and I've dealt with this with my clients that were business owners through the years, you need to have a
Mhm.
team, you need to have a system, operations in place. You need to have a clear marketing and sales strategy. And I think the bigger you can get your net revenue number, the more attractive you are to anybody.
Mhm.
So that's why we look for very specific things when we're on the buying side.
Mhm.
We like 10 employees or more. We like $1 million of net revenue or more. That's not a hard and fast rule, but 20 to 30% net profit margin works pretty well. There's some room to maneuver inside of that. But somebody who just hasn't kind of brought their business into the new age of the things you can create now. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Interesting. What would you say are some of the mistakes that people make when they are setting themselves up to sell? Is there anything that you see commonly that people shouldn't be doing, and they keep seeing it over and over again, would you say?
there's a lot there. Yeah, I mean, if I had to highlight some of the more common, one, you're too emotionally tied to the
Hmm.
business, which is
Hmm.
understandable, right? It's your baby. That's your blood, sweat, and tears for 30, 40, sometimes 50 years.
Hmm.
Um, More often than not, you don't professionalize your business or your practice. And
Hmm.
what I mean by that is audited financials, track record of growth, the right team in place, that type of thing,
Hmm.
right? If you can't show proven results and performance and numbers, it's very hard to negotiate the best price on your behalf as a seller.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm curious too. You mentioned before, putting in sales and marketing um, into a company or a business. Is there any validity to um, going down the path of digitizing that business so that it is a little bit more plug and play, not so Susie, who always did, 50 different jobs, she leaves, and now you're trying to find somebody who has the skill sets that Susie did. And she was over here, she was over here, she was over here. And you basically have an irreplaceable employee at that point. Does a company become more attractive and more valuable when you, again, digitize that process and sort of make it a little bit more plug and play where, people
Absolutely.
can be plugged
Yeah.
in? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you have one, or even sometimes depending on the size of the business, two employees that essentially, that's what I say when I say they are the business, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to be able to have that owner or that key employee step out, and either systems take that over or somebody fill that gap. Otherwise, it's too much concentration risk in your employee subset.
Yeah.
That will scare a lot of sellers or potential buyers, away from that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense. What other things do buyers typically look at and get scared away by? Is there anything else that, I know that's
On
a
the
big
buyer side,
question based
yeah,
on,
yeah. Well, there's a lot, right? If you don't have, a decent competitive advantage,
Mhm.
if your industry is in a dying breed, if you, to your point of digitizing, if you can just be replaced by a technology or a system that's faster and cheaper than what you're doing manually,
Yeah.
that usually doesn't work, right? Um, I think just in general, it's if you haven't run a good business from all angles, you've opened the door to a lot of holes as far as potential risks to a buyer.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you have to pay attention to all sides of that business, the financials, the marketing, the
Hmm.
team, kind of really round out all the edges, so to
Yeah.
speak. And that's how you have more interest and more opportunity as far as professionalizing it
Hmm.
and taking it, to sell.
Yeah. And then when someone does want to sell, what would be the best path? I mean, I know obviously there's the path, bringing it to you. But what would you say is the best path that they can take to be able to, um, again, get the most exposure for that business and make sure that they're going to, I guess, be represented by, a company properly and correctly to realize the best gain for, potentially their life's work, right?
Sure. I think the best way to do that, the most successful people I've seen, at least as far as my individual clients, and I don't know if I'm, the most qualified person to answer this, but from my experience, and I've seen, you know, probably 100 businesses bought and sold over the last 20 years.
Hmm.
The people that started enacting a plan even 5 years out, but even if you did it 2 years before you think you might eventually want to exit and put all
Hmm.
those pieces in place and find a professional advisor, there's plenty of businesses that will come in and help you put all of these things in place. So by the time you list that business for sale, you're strategically aligned with what people are going to want to see from an opportunity.
Yeah.
And furthermore, then you market it, right? It's no different than selling anything else. You have to get your message and your word out there. The bigger buyer pool that you're playing in, the more opportunity you have.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And what are some of the big buyer pools out there, would you say? Are there any go-tos, would you say? And again, maybe that gets a little bit too much into your business too. Which again, you can not answer that if you don't
Or
want
not
to,
at all,
but
not at all, not at all. And again, to be clear, I mean, I look at these as, on my side now, it's more of an investment opportunity
mhm,
for us to come in and grow that I look at it as a passive income stream,
yeah.
grow it, and then sell it for appreciation value for my investors. But I think when I say buyer pool, it's really, you see a lot of people either try and sell it themselves,
Mhm,
which you're very limited in your reach.
yeah.
Use a local business broker whose reach again is, maybe quite a bit wider than yours personally, but not all that much.
Mhm,
Or you can go to the other extreme, and it's dependent on the size of your business and the revenue of who you'll attract. To go to a business service, and there's multiple out there, that actually takes your business for you, markets it professionally to a network of 100,000 different
yeah.
potential buyers. That's a whole different ballgame.
Yep.
And it is dependent very much so on the size of your business and your net revenue and all that kind of good stuff. But, like anything, the more eyeballs you get on something,
Yeah, the better it's going to be.
Have a better opportunity set.
Yeah. And for yourself, when you were making this transition, obviously you started off with the smaller businesses and you kept growing this book of business. Were there any, I know that you shifted through a couple of different industries. Would you say that there's any that are, sort of turnoffs at this point, or anything that you would steer clear from? Or is it, again, pretty well any business that it has those things, that obviously has the revenue, maybe has the systems, it's not in a dying market, or it's not in an industry that's going away. Is there anything else that you've learned along the way as to, maybe this industry isn't a good one to get involved in? Or is it pretty well, as long as the numbers make sense, then, you should be good? I'm just curious.
Again, I think, this is just particular to our group. Other people might have different opinions, but we typically stay away from the service industry, meaning restaurants, bars, that type of thing. Other than that, we're really industry agnostic. It needs to be the right opportunity and the right time to enter that business, with the right metrics that we have very specific buy box, so to speak, of what we're looking for. If you check that box, we're interested. The end result, again, the goal is to give my investors the right opportunity with the right amount of risk in each particular opportunity that we bring to them. So, that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Dana, this is fantastic. If people want to learn more about you, your services, what would be the best way to reach out and get in touch?
Yeah, I appreciate that. My firm is Cornell Capital Holdings with an S. So the website is simply cornellcapitalholdings.com. You can also just go to danacornell.com. That lists everything I do there. And it's just Dana Cornell 3 on Instagram.
Excellent. Dana, this is fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing more from you and different things that you might be interested in investing in. We play in the real estate space ourselves. You mentioned that not necessarily interested in multifamily, but we've got quite a few different properties that we're actively purchasing. So who knows, maybe we can do business at some point someday.
Let me know what you're up to. Absolutely. It's, again, the same thing goes on the real estate side, right? I can make general statements about subsets of the market, but it's the individual opportunity.
Yeah. Yep. Makes perfect sense. So Dana, you were saying that you have a course that teaches people how to raise private equity, private funds.
Yeah. So, I mentioned how to find me. One of the ways is danacornell.com. You'll see on there's a tab for my masterclass. So I realized, especially in the real estate space, or honestly, whether you're purchasing real estate or you're buying a business or you're running a business, right? What makes most of those opportunities fail is lack of capital. So at the encouragement of some of my partners on the development side, they said, really, this is a skill set that people should know and could use. And if you're serious about raising capital, I teach a 4-week course, and then we have some coaching that goes on after that. I break down my entire business, my entire process. We go very deep into investor psychology, who to profile, how to find them, how to structure meetings, how to pull out everything in them that's their concerns that, quite honestly, they usually can't articulate themselves. And then how to have them really kind of walk into the right opportunity for them. It's helped me raise well over $1 billion of private capital. It's been refined over 20 years. It's what I've taught my whole team now. We're raising, we bring in about $2 to $3 million a week right now in private money. So yeah, for those that are serious about learning a skill set that I feel is something valuable, you're getting more. You're getting negotiation. You're getting objection handling. You're getting all the things that you can use I use it with my kids all the time.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. It's a 4-week course. You can get all the details on that website. And I appreciate you bringing it up. It's been fun, and it's a way for me to kind of give back and add some value to the world. So.
Yeah, no doubt. And obviously, you know what you're talking about, raising more than $1 billion over the years. That's an impressive figure. So
yeah, I think the key to that, the last thing I'll say on the topic is, people often think when they hear that number that I came from,
Right.
that kind of world, or that, that my parents had friends like that. I mean, I literally started knocking on doors, asking for checks for $50 into a college savings plan,
Mhm.
so it's been tried by fire. It wasn't handed to me. So I think that's why the process works. And that's what resonates with a lot of people that really want to learn the skill set.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And what are some of the results that your students have gotten? Any figures there?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I just checked in, with most of the students. We kind of did a look back and said, I track it through the course. So
Mhm.
it's a 4-week course. My guarantee to the students is, and by the way, the cost is 5,000 for the course.
Mhm.
I put 2 guarantees on it. Basically, if you don't like the course, you don't think it was valuable, I shoot your money back. I'm certainly not doing it for the money.
Yeah.
But more importantly, because I feel so strongly about the skill set, I say to anybody that participates and follows the training, um, if you can't raise $1 million in the next 12 months, I'll raise it with you, not for you,
Okay.
but with you, because I want you to learn the skill set. What's been interesting is throughout the first 4 weeks, because it's actionable every week,
Mhm.
um, the average student has raised 800,000
Wow.
during class. Um, we have students that have raised 15 million since they started.
Wow.
It hasn't been a year yet since I actually launched the training course. So,
Yeah. Wow.
um,
That's impressive. And it, the people that have raised, exponentially more than the other people, are there any character traits or anything that you can identify that these people had different or were doing differently than the other people at all?
yeah, yeah, I can. And, it comes down to the blocking and tackling of it, right? This
Mhm.
is still a numbers game, right? So if you have a good offer and you know how to present it properly and you know how to have a conversation to really find out what people need and
Mhm.
add value to them, then it's just a matter of how many people do you contact, how often do you do it. Um, it's the repetition of it.
Mhm.
Get better as
Mhm.
you go. But again, it's a numbers game, right? So I can tell you the people that go on, and I do a kind of an ongoing check-in accountability, that type of thing after the
Mhm.
full course for people. Most of them have done that have excelled, and most it's just they put in more time and effort and they take on the identity that that's what they do.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm a developer that now has to switch gears and go raise, you know, 2, 3, 4, $5 million.
Yeah.
They take on the identity. This is what I do when I provide investors this type of opportunity. This is how I do it.
Yep.
I
Yep.
develop deals,
Yeah.
right?
That
Kind
makes
of
sense.
mindset shift for sure.
And
Yeah.
actually, one last question too. Do you find that, and I guess this might just this is just maybe a a uh, a characteristic of the device that you use to have people invest in, but are investors like, you've raised these funds and you're raising them, I'm assuming, before you actually have the deal, that's ready there. So are you finding that people are willing to, maybe you have a fund or something like that? I'm not quite sure what that mechanism is. But are you finding that the investors are willing to invest money with you and then sit and wait for whatever that opportunity is? Or are you establishing that relationship with them, and then you're presenting the deals as you come across them, to them, and then that's when they actually invest, when there's something to deploy the capital in?
Yeah, great question. And this is a lot of what we kind of work on in the course. Um, so my process is I don't take the money until I have a project,
Mhm.
but it is very much relationship based. So I need to know that person. I need to know what they like, what they don't like, what's a true fit for them. And then when I have that, and the way I do it is I set it up on almost a capital call type situation,
Mhm.
just meaning they'll make a general commitment to me that if I can check all of these boxes that we agree is a good fit for them and solves their need, then they're in for the next project. So I
Yep.
almost keep them in a queue of who's up next, if that makes any sense.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, that's probably the best way I can explain it. Then I know exactly, who's the right fit for the right type of opportunity. And
Yep.
then we just match them up and make sure they're comfortable and they know everything of the good and bad of what it is and what it isn't. And just keep moving from there.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. And does the course cover I guess the systems on how to manage all of that and how to identify the people and these are kind of the levers that you should make sure that you understand about this type of investor versus this kind of investor.
That's why I think, didn't mean to cut you off, but I get passionate about this stuff because to me, it's my whole world, but it's interesting. That's why we start very heavily on the investor psychology, how to profile them, how to find them, how to make contact with them in the right way. That's why I think people have so much success in the first 4 weeks, because once you get that, that's the 80-20 rule of doing this. Right?
Yeah.
If you profile them and get to their needs quickly, the rest, yes, we go through everything from literally how do I structure an agenda for a meeting to my 7-step process of running the meeting to what systems do I use to keep them in the queue and keep them organized. We go through legal. We have an attorney come on, tell you how to structure things and make sure you don't get yourself in trouble raising money. We cover literally, I pull back the curtain on my entire capital raising business and show you everything start to finish.
Yeah.
So
Love it. Love it. And this is something that would you say that anyone can follow? I mean, you probably have to have an outgoing personality, but as long as you're willing to put in the work and the effort and make those calls and connections, pretty well anybody could do it. Would you say?
I absolutely would say that. We've taken some very introverted people and taught them the system and the process. The nice thing about it is it's so structured now. If you just follow the steps, even if you're the shyest person, right? We all know a type A personality is going to latch on to this type of skill set a little bit better.
Yeah.
But absolutely everybody can do it. It's so systematized at this point. You just have to do the step by step and you're going to end up in the same spot at the end of the day.
Excellent. Well, Dana, this is
Awesome,
fantastic. We will be in touch shortly.
All righty. Hey, Matt, thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on.